Okay, so we're going to start a presentation today on the Boomerang Road Map as well as the Precision Trade Guide. But first, let me go over how Boomerang Day Trader works in its basic form. Make sure and understand the risk disclosure and the hypothetical risk disclosure, because what I show you here are trade setups on Boomerang, which is our software, and a trade is a setup when precision accurate software like Boomerang you follow the rules and it gives you the setup. And a trade is when a person who is a trader with a capital account opened and a futures account sees the signal and enters the trade. Sometimes, believe it or not, I get people that mix them up and they can't seem to understand the difference. We don't say that Boomerang guarantees 90% winning trades. We say it guarantees 90% winning trade setups following the rules. And some people get all confused about that because they're trying to make up something that's not there. But for compliance and for risk disclosure, I like to let everybody know crystal clear it's trade setups. They occur. You may not take them. I may take them. Somebody else may take them. I may miss one. Somebody else may take it. You see, if you take the setup, then it's a trade. Just so you know the difference. So with that in mind, the way Boomerang works is it makes trade setups according to the method that we use. Now this is a mini NASDAQ contract, and for Boomerang we use a 450 tick default chart. Now people like to immediately come in sometimes, not everybody, most people like to follow the proven method, but they come in and say, well, can I use Renko bars or can I use this or that? I go, listen, God bless you for wanting to try something else. I understand, I'm a researcher myself in the markets and everything. Try the proven method first. Get yourself on a winning roll with the proven method. Then later, you can experiment a little. That's not a big deal. Boomerang works on all time frames, on any chart, dailies, weeklies. I run Boomerangs on the 5-minute, 15-minute charts, 30-minute charts, 60, and 135 when I'm day trading. I follow all the higher time frames, and I just have standard Boomerang charts running because they help me. And by the way, I show you how to do that in a special video that comes with my Precision Trade Guide, which I'm going to be going over with you later in a few minutes here. So the basic method is this. You have a trade channel which is signaled by these arrows. That's these shaded green areas. For the upside, these are buy channels. They're shaded green. And the down channels are shaded kind of white. It's actually a reddish, light red color, but it shades it kind of a whitish color on a black background. So what we look for, you have these two bands here, these magenta colored bands, which are the thicker solid one is dynamic trend band number 2, and the thinner one is dynamic trend band number 1. And usually running between and around those is the cobra, which is this dotted line here, and it'll change colors along with the rest of the bands, but it usually will tend to front run the Boomerang dynamic trend bands a little quicker, and that's why we use it. And it's also a very valuable tool that we very specifically use for pullbacks under certain conditions, which one will show up, I believe, in a minute. They always do, and I'll show you how that works. So first of all, you have a trade channel that opens. It's alarmed, so you'll know when it's opening. The trade channel will open. A signal will go off, and when the candle locks down, what I mean by lock down, these are 450 tick charts, so we have a tick counter here. As soon as this meter runs out down to 0, it'll open up a new candle after the 450 ticks. When this arrow locks down on a buy channel, for example, all you're doing is looking to see, number one, it's this simple. Are the dynamic trend bands crossing over? Like here, you see they're crossing over to the downside. Or are they matching color in relation to the buy or sell channel? Because in trading, you have buying and selling, right? So we get a buy channel. We want the blue colored dynamic trend bands in a buy channel to match, or like in this case here, just having crossed over, and then when they finally get to the sell yellow dot, they do match. But there are cases where they may cross and you don't have an exact match on number 2, but that's okay as long as they've crossed over. But anyway, so the first trade that you take is the pullback to the sig line, which is this very thin dashed line running through here, and it's marked by these blue dots on the buy side and yellow dots in the sell side. And you can make these colors any color you want for the pullbacks to the signal line. Now there are 6 of them. The Boomerang is only, the algorithms in Boomerang are only going to mark up to 6 candles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now notice there's a pullback here to the signal line and here, but they're not marked with a dot. Boomerang will stop after 6 because normally you don't even want the 6th pullback. You want the earliest one possible. You want to get in as soon as the sell or buy channel closes and the first pullback to the signal line with the correct setup on the dynamic trend bands. Now, believe it or not, I've just given you the whole system. That's all there is to it. There's 2 small modifications which I'll go over if we run into that. But for now, that's all you need to know. That's the basic core system, and it's explained on our blog. Now, for all things default Boomerang, all you got to do is go to boomerangtrader.com. And when you get to the site, you can look at the home page and watch the video on there to start if you're absolutely brand new to Boomerang. But then you go to the resource section, and in the resource section, you'll find these exact methods explained in a crisper, more involved detail. I'm just going to do a brief recap here today so I can go into my roadmap, present Boomerang Road Map, which is my latest. It's literally like a map of the markets. I haven't produced any indicator or anything for, I'd say, about 4 years. So this is brand new. And also my precision trade guide, which is an older indicator but still very valuable. I use it every day myself. So getting back to the Boomerang method, here's the buy channel. Here's the first pullback signal line with the dynamic trend bands matching. And according to the method on NASDAQ, we're going to scalp for 3 points. There's the entry is right around 96.70, 52, 96.75, or what I use last 4 digit, 96.75. Say you got 97 with a little slippage. So we're going to look for a move up to 5,300. And that occurred right here on the top of this candle. So you instantly, they jammed up there, gave you 3 points. Now keep in mind, that's no small matter, because if you had 10 contracts on, which I don't recommend you trade if you're a new trader, but if you had 10 contracts on, you're moving at $200 a point. That's a good trade for 3 points. You see what I'm saying? You made $600 on this little move that lasted just a very short time. It looks to me like that came in 36.23 and they were filled within approximately a minute or so. You put $600 in your pocket if you had 10 contracts. Well, I usually don't use that example, but I'm just trying to show you how dramatic that can be. So don't think, oh, only 3 points, because I know you may see, oh, the prices went way up here, way up here. Let me tell you something. Professional traders that I've known, floor traders and others, this is a very important point, they set a target goal of the most easily attainable amount of money. They fix the amount they want to get, and they figure out how to get that with the easiest and lowest risk way that they can. So I'm just saying that's what the purpose of scalping is. If you're a long-term chart trader and you're going to buy them here and hold them for a few days or a couple hours, that's a whole different type of trading. But Boomerang is a scalping method. So that 3 points here, let's come down to what I call a blue-collar working trader account. 4 contracts. If you came in here and on 4 contracts at $20 a point, you're moving at $80 a point. You see what I'm saying? So if you made 3 points, that's $240 minus the commission. About $230, $225 is what you're going to make. That's still pretty good, because if you make 3 or 4 of those a day, that's a very nice executive income. So did you see how that worked? We didn't necessarily want this dot. We certainly don't want this dot. We want the closest one. Now, if this was the first one up here, that's one we'd take, but we want the first one that shows up. So there's 3 points there. Now, as the prices kept moving up, as we've seen a lot lately on the what some people are calling the Trump train, where the market just keeps growing and going higher. Hey, where are the pullbacks? I don't know. I haven't given up yet, but I keep wondering, Hey, in the markets I've watched for 27 years as a trader, they go up and up and up, and then they pull back, usually 2, 3%, and then they balance out and they start moving up again if it's bullish. But this deal, this train has just kept rolling, and that's fine. That's a big whatever. That's the way it goes. So then we watch for another trade. Now, first of all, on a second level trade, what you're watching for is a counter move with an arrow that actually prints and the candle locks down. Of course, you're not going to take a short, an opposite arrow, and in this case, a short arrow, a sell arrow to the downside. We're not going to take that trade. We just want to see if it's going to move the color of this dynamic trend band number 2, which it didn't. So all of a sudden, you got a new buy channel, and that produces another trade here. You see what I'm saying? It produced another trade. Now you get some whipsaw coming in, and the market actually moved up from 475. Now we're using a 5-point stop in these, by the way. It pushed back lower, but the dynamic trend band stayed bullish. It formed a new buy channel, and then from 5 they ran up all the way to 11. So somewhere in here, if you got whipsawed around a little bit, that's part of the fun of futures trading, I guess, if you can call it that. And you ended up making another 3 points on this final move to the upside here. Then, as the market moved up, so that's 2 winning trades right out of this batch here. Now there was another one here, but that's a third level trade. We ended up holding the trade. In this case, you would have held that and followed that up, but that was actually a third level trade that panned out there. Now we watch for a third trade here, and you can see that the dynamic trend bands have crossed over, but no, there's a little, again, the whipsaw is coming in from the sell channel, buy channel, sell channel. These are not counting because you have the cross under. I should say cross under is a downside move. So we're waiting for the sell channel. That comes in here, and you go short at the market here on the first pullback sig line. Remember the rule I just gave you. And 5307 comes down to 5302, and within there's another 3 points. So within this small zone, which came from around just after the open, about 5 minutes after 6:35, this is a West Coast chart, remember, to 7:58. So approximately an hour and 20 minutes, you had 3 winning trades. And if you had a small 4-contract account using about 5, 6, 7,000 bucks, maybe a little reserve cushion if you need it, you're after commission, you got 3 trades times approximately 230 bucks, 690 bucks, almost a $700 day. And believe it or not, my recommendation, if that happens to you, stop trading. There's always tomorrow. I mean, you can sit there all day and trade if you want. That's up to you, because there will be other boomerang trades. Let me show you this one. This is one of those modifications. I want to show you this. But usually when you make a nice paycheck like that, it's a very good idea to just wait, because you can always come back tomorrow. It's a regular daily job. But let me show you, if you said, well, I'm going to go and wait for another trade. Here's, with your knowledge of the boomerang system, here's what you would have done on this. Here comes a buy channel. The dynamic trend band and the Cobra both turn green, but it doesn't become a trade, as you recall, until you have a crossover or the colors match on the 2 dynamic trend bands. That's all you're watching is this 2. Well, what happens is, as I mentioned to you, there are going to be 6 candles, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and after the 6th candle, they won't mark the pullbacks. So this little simple modification rule, and this is where the Cobra comes in very, very handy. That's why I developed it into the boomerang. All the pullbacks to the signal line have been used up, you see, from the new buy channel before there was a crossover of the channel or matching dynamic trend bands. So what happens is, if those get used up, yet you've got a crossover, which are very powerful things. You can see when they cross over, you get a lot of force in that direction. So here's a crossover. So the method, the modification rule is that if a crossover occurs and all the pullbacks are used up, you simply trade a pullback to the Cobra. That's the authorized trade on the modification, which occurred right here. And 650 ran up to 12 and a quarter, so made a substantial 3-point move there easily. Now your net would be approximately 930 bucks or so for the day if you stopped here. And of course, the market keeps going and doing its thing. And this is one of these things lately where the train just keeps rolling ahead and it just doesn't seem to want to stop. And that's a big whatever. Well, now I'm going to present to you, that's how Boomerang works. I just showed you in essence on this short brief recording exactly how Boomerang works there. So what I'm going to do now, and I want to say something before I bring this up. You're going to see a lot of lines in here. Don't worry about that because I've made them extra thick so I can explain this to you. Now this is again an advanced study of the markets. These are not, the Boomerang Road Map is not required at all by any stretch for you to own Boomerang and start trading with it and make steady money. The road map was something I developed because I myself have used road maps for a long time and I believe in them and I think they're very, very vital to staying on the right side of the market. So with that in mind, let me explain to you what we have here. Now this is a Boomerang, the chart setups you just saw. Now again, I know there's going to look like you're going to say, wow, there's a lot of lines there and all that. That's not an issue because all the lines can be shrunk smaller and they can be thinned out tremendously so that they don't seem to clutter the chart or anything, but every single one of them has very vital information. Now what is missing on here is the dynamic trend bands. I do not have the dynamic trend bands on here, and I'm going to show you why. That's just for clarification of the method. So what you have on the Boomerang Road Map, and this is the first time I've ever done this on a full video, and we'll run about maybe 20 minutes to 25 minutes to show you the road map and its correlation with this down here, which is the precision trade guide I've been talking about. Most of you are familiar up here with the hyper scalp indicator up here. So let me show you how the main thing of the roadmap. Now it's very detailed, so I'm going to just quickly go over it so you understand the purpose of it. The first of all, the roadmap, and it comes with 2 hours of instructions with great detail on how to build the roadmap, how to understand how to use it and everything. So let's start with that. I'm not going to have a 2-hour presentation, but that comes automatically with the purchase of roadmap, which is only $295, but it's going to add so much tremendous success to your trading. I'll show you why. First of all, take a look at this orange thicker dashed line here and this thinner one. This is a new Boomerang indicator called the Boomerang filter. Now normally you'd have the dynamic trend bands in here as well to watch. These would be thinner, but for right now let me just show you what the road map consists of. These Boomerang filters, these 2 orange lines, are really amazing because what happens is usually when you get a crossover of the thinner one over the core base one here, the thicker one, you will get a surge in prices in that direction. Now like everything, not always, but it's very important. This thicker blue line is a very important level for institutional buying or selling. Now you can apply the roadmap to any chart or futures contract or anything, but in this case I'm just showing you the value for Boomerang because I think most of you are Boomerang users and you'll see the value. The other new Boomerang indicator up here is this price pressure band. That's this dashed thin line and this thicker white line. They're called price pressure bands, and I'll show you how those work in a second here. So this was this is the same exact chart on that date on the 17th of this month, and I want to show you. So first of all, I'm showing you the same chart. That's what I meant. Is this blue line is a very key institutional level that moves with the market. Also are these levels here. This gold line, very vital. And on each side of the gold line you have a magenta line and a red line. These are moving and breathing lines. They don't move very fast, but these are key institutional levels that traders who are buying or selling securities, and that's why this can all be applied to any stock or um, ETF or anything. When they start reaching up over this magenta line pushing towards this red line, they rarely will hit the red dotted line areas, but a lot of times they'll come up into this zone, as you can see here. And we watch for the price pressure bands to move up into that zone. That market is getting very exhausted, and odds are that the prices are going to revert back to the gold center line at least, and in some cases move all the way back down towards the opposite sided magenta line. But what that does is we add this orange thicker line in correlation with this blue line, and you're watching the gold line here to give you a really strong bias reading. Now notice when the orange line crosses over the blue line, you've got a very strong institutional reading of a buy market with prices above this gold line as well. So you do not want to fade this until it gets very exhausted. Now you're not normally going to do that anyway because you're going to wait for a boomerang trade, right? But what that tells you is that the boomerang trade should be pretty rock solid once it gets exhausted. Now the way you can read exhaustion, and again, once you purchase this, you'll have detailed instructions. I'm not going to give all those here, obviously it would take too long. But you see the crossover, and now the price are on the bull side, and all the pullbacks, and notice they just happen to come down to our orange filter line. All the pullbacks are coming down into the two orange filter line areas. Usually the first one will tap the thin one, and the second one may dip a little lower, but they keep getting supported, and you know that because the orange line, the thick dashed line, has crossed this blue line, and they're above the gold line. Now, again, these are not official boomerang trades. I have to stick very strictly with the boomerang method when I'm training everybody so people don't get confused. And I'm sorry if some of you are brand new to this presentation, just coming to learn about boomerang, and you're seeing all these lines in this more complicated presentation. But that's because I need to do this for our thousands of experienced members. So one other indicator that I've applied here is called the price pressure bands. Now, when the dashed line moves above the white line or below in the case of a downside move, that's additional confirmation that that price wants to move up. You see that once they crossed over right here in this candle, you can more confidently buy those pull back to the signal line, in this case the buy thing, and then they run up. And they kind of go neutral here, they pull back, and as they press up over the top of that, it just gives you very micro time frame readings that the market is trying to push higher. Now what happens is once these price pressure bands stretch up towards the red line or even above the magenta line, like here they're going above it once, twice, three times in those three waves, that's telling you that odds are very good that that market is getting exhausted. Get ready to get short, and that the next level that the prices should pull back will be at least to the gold line. Well, now as I forward this, look what happened. They came exactly down to the gold line and bounced straight back up because the market is trying to stay bullish here. And that's just whatever reason, that's the nature of the market. But look what happened here. You got your first boomerang signal coming in here with the channel shaded red. You've got the crossover here of the price pressure band telling you, giving you much confirmation there. You get short here in a normal boomerang at 675, 5306.75. You see that? But you're very confident in knowing that odds are the price going to go down to the gold line. So instead of holding for 3 points down to 375, you can hold them all the way down here to 99.75 for double the amount of points on that trade. You see that? So right there, that the roadmap gave you a tremendous understanding that you can hold this trade in good confidence to move back lower here. Once that trade fulfills itself, you say, well, what's going on now? You shift over. What's the bias reading? You go, well, the spread on the blue line and the gold line is sure widening out here. That doesn't mean the end of the move to the upside is necessarily over, but it's probably getting pretty close. And the gold dashed line is getting ready to cross over here. You see that? However, the Cobra is lifting back up and they're sustaining themselves and moving back up. You have the price pressure bands coming up here, so a little bit more upside to go. And indeed, with the gold line holding up here and then the filter coming up and crossing back over this thin line, the filter over this gold line here suggests the market's going to surge again. And it made a huge surge into the close. And this was a chart I just showed you the other day. So you had several indications there. Now going back over this, I want to show you real quickly the correlation with the Precision Trade Guide. Now the way the Precision Trade Guide works is that when the Precision Trade Guide crosses over this orange line, see it's a zero line, the first resistance is going to be up here at this blue level. First you have the white line crossing over, then you have the magenta line crossing over, and there's going to be generally, once they cross over, there's going to at least be a move to where these lines close in on the blue line level up here. So that also gives you some understanding of where to watch for the price to go. Once they get above that, maybe they're just, you can see now, even though the price is pushing up, notice how the prices are pulling back under the blue line and they're just kind of drifting. And you've got Hyperscalp trying to push higher. It makes another thrust, and you only just barely get a crossover here over this blue line. Then they cross over to the downside, and that tells you the bias is now shifted with these trading crossing over solidly under the blue line here, and then you get that pullback. They cross back under the orange line here, telling you can still hold short because prices are under the thick filter here, the dashed line. And we know from the roadmap, again, like I said, this is a little more complex. This is not Boomerang Trader per se, but it's a more complex roadmap. It's an advanced study of the markets, not Boomerang. Boomerang's very, very simple, as I showed you earlier. But this is an advanced study of the markets themselves, the movement of all these prices, not just the Boomerang trades. You can sit and wait for the Boomerang trades and take those without any of the roadmap, but I just want to be clear on that. But because of the roadmap, we're anticipating a move down here for a larger scale move. And once they get up here and you see the crossovers occurring, now there's some pressure here with the cross under the gold line here. And then that's when they hammer them right down exactly to the gold line. You see that? Well, lo and behold, you're saying, I wonder if they're going to continue. And remember when we were over here, we're saying, look at this now. They're pulling back here. Let's say you're like right here on the right side of the chart. And you say, I wonder if this is the end of the move and they're going further, they're going to go higher. Well, they're still crossed over on the top here. In other words, the orange line's above the blue line. These are key institutional levels, by the way. I'm just calling them orange line, blue line, because I'm trying to make it simple for the presentation. But you see Cobra crossing over this filter. And here's the key, right here. The Precision Trade Guide is crossing back up over the orange line. I'll just move it because we're not live here, but I'll just move it frame by or tick by tick. You see, these are crossing back over, so telling you the buy side's still alive. Cobra's crossed over. These are holding here, and let's see what goes on next. And that's when you see the Precision Trade Guides making another ramp up. And again, you can use some or all of these tools, but as you're learning the roadmap, I can't really show you on this presentation how wonderful it is, but once you start using it every day, When you're just trading the markets normally, the markets are going up or whatever, you don't know. But when you start seeing these prices and the price pressure bands moving above these magenta lines on either side, and I'll go over some other charts in a minute, you're going to have that very extremely profitable and valuable knowledge that these are key institution levels where the market could get um, very exhausted up there. Now, lately we've had this Trump train thing chewing along, and it just doesn't seem to want to stop. But still, you're normally not going to be trading this late in the day anyway. But it's showing you the key levels to watch for. Now that they've made these exhaustion moves up here, the next day on Globex, this apparently was a holiday. They pulled back some, but we all know it's just been going very strong. So again, all these lines can be made thinner and less visible. It looks like a lot of lines, but each one is extremely valuable. So when you come into the new day now, watch this. What do you have? They're still hovering around the gold line. They cross over here above the gold line. Once again has sustained itself in pre-market above the blue line, so it's still showing you that dips are going to keep getting bought up. That one aspect alone of the roadmap, this orange line and this blue line, as long as that's above that, dips are going to keep catching support. Now it is above that again, so the market starts moving up, and look at this. Now they're scraping up against this red line. This market's getting very exhausted on the upside. They scrape up against the red side just 15 minutes after the open. They push higher again, and now this is where Boomerang is, my hyper scalp is one of the most valuable tools in the market. I've only made two indicators. I've got the Boomerang system, hyper scalp, and the precision trade guide, and the roadmap I developed just recently, a couple months ago. But look at this. This is really getting into institutional, way overbought area up here. Now look at this. This is called divergence on hyperscalp. A big thrust here, a thrust slightly higher. See the high here is 47, slightly higher here at 49, but look at the hyperscalp pulling back. Then you have another big blast up here. You with me? But look at hyperscalp. Hardly any market force in that thrust. That's a top there because they've hit the red. The price pressure bands have crossed over again this key magenta level, and again, now notice here also another tool you can use is you got a cross under here of the price pressure bands and a cross under here telling you that the market's more than likely hit a top, and because the gold line has moved up here, so this is a key institutional level. The market's way overbought. And now you get into the boomerang trade, and you know it's going to the yellow line at least, but because it's so close and nearby here, you're short at 46. Well, let's see. You're going to take this trade, and the actual entry would be 47.75. The gold line is down here at 41.75, but odds are with this kind of exhaustion, you're going to get a stronger move down closer towards the lower magenta line. Let's see what happens. I really don't know. It's mid-morning on I guess that's the 18th. Let's see what happens. Well, because it's pretty bullish, you can see though they took off substantially below that. And if you drew a line in the center here between these two, which is available, there is a line that will measure in the center of this. I just don't put it on there because I don't like to, didn't want these charts to be too cluttered up. But there's actually, and you can make it any color you want, but the default color is blue. Let me find like a sea green here. That's good. So on the program, you actually have a third line here, and you can see that from this boomerang entry up here, which the roadmap showed you was extremely exhausted, hyperscalp showed you divergence, and what happened here? Precision trade guide crossed under with, this is the key thing, the rock solid crossover, cross under I should say, So I got to blow it up a little so you can see it, of this slower line, magenta line crossing under this blue line. You see that? Oh, you'll get so good at this. I use it every day and it's amazing. I'm sitting here going, God, this is like a no-brainer that this market is peaking up here. Hyperscalp is showing extreme exhaustion. All these institutional levels are getting hit. And now this magenta line is crossed under the blue line. You see that? So net, you're of course still going to wait for the boomerang trade because that adds the whole boomerang force of the market under that. You see? But I'm just saying, you can see how the roadmap's going to give you this additional input. And now you can follow the roadmap. And again, this line would be available on the roadmap, and you can put it in or make it real thin. But you would say I would expect this to at least across under the gold line, probably down towards the magenta line, but at least center line, which again is available. Or you can do what I just did there and quickly measure it while the trade is going on. But you can see that instead of taking 3 points on 47.50 down to right here, 43.50, you can go to the gold line, which is 41.75, 41.50. So that automatically is 6 points there. But if you held it down to the center between the gold line and the magenta line, that's 36.75, a little bit lower. 34 was the low. The magenta line was at 31.25, 34. So that ended up turning into a 13-point move. You see what I mean? That's the purpose of the roadmap. I've been using this for a long time. That's why I have many videos, live recordings of my trades on my Day Traders Action room on my YouTube channel. Some are 25 points, a lot of 12 pointers, 10 pointers, 8 pointers, all kinds of those swing trades on there using the exact method I showed you here using my simple tools. Now, of course, another thing too, when you got to the gold line, by the way, notice this. You got short on Boomerang with your knowledge from the roadmap at 47.75. They got down the gold line. What happened? Right there, look at that. The precision trade guide is moving under this zero line here, or the gold line, giving you a bearish bias. So, of course, then you want to hold that for a lower move, and they hammered them down at 34. And we're still day traders and scalpers, but you see what happened? So I hope that gives you a good idea of how the roadmap works. You had the tools here with the hyperscalp, which comes with Boomerang for measuring the divergence. You had the precision trade guide here when this crossed under the blue line after being up this much, showing you. You had the roadmap features, and that gave you the bias readings you wanted. Now they crossed under here. So now you got a slightly stronger potential bearish bias with the market dipping down. You see that with the orange line crossing under the blue line. And you see how prices hold back from that. So once they do that, you can, if you're going to get real good at using the roadmap, you can fade into bounces back up there. But be careful because the confirmation's not there. You have to look at some other measures normally. And we show you on the precision trade guide, I have a little miniature short webinar on how to use the higher time frames, which is an additional tool. Again, like I said, you do not need the roadmap, the higher time frames, or anything to trade Boomerang. It's already self-contained with the simple method I showed you earlier, but this is an advanced study for those who really want to try to achieve larger scale winning trades. And I've had that question ever since I introduced Boomerang way back in 2008, where you're scalping for 3 points, because that's what we've always done, but there was so much more left on the table. You hear that type of stuff. I go, well, it's left on the table, but you're saying you would have caught it, and we don't know that you have the guts to grab all that anyway. So to just throw out that it's left on the table, this is a very challenging business, and sometimes it's better if you do scalp your money and no one knows that they're going to go down here, but the Boomerang roadmap will give you that confidence to make the larger scale trades. I had so many requests for that. That's why I developed it. Now it's here and you can use it yourself. Again, the price pressure bands, you watch those for measuring above these levels, and you watch them on crossover and cross unders to confirm additional strength in the move, more confidence in your trade. So, well, what happened here? Well, this gets late in the day, but let me show you what happened. So, put this at the regular chart space. Here they come down, and they're kind of fading off against the gold line because they're moving under the gold line, so the bias is trying to change. Well, we all know the last few days. This is from the 18th, so we all know that the market has been just so screaming bullish. Pullbacks are not doing much. So it goes into chop mode here. You can see that. There's no boomerang trades here. It's all in chop mode. Just staying out of that. You got a downside bias, but they're just not kicking the downside. Notice how they keep supporting at this second road map level, this green line that I put in. Again, that's right between the magenta line and the yellow line. It's right around here, maybe a little lower. It's automatic if you have it programmed in there. And again, you can put a very thin little line in there, barely noticeable, so it won't clutter your chart. But how valuable is that line? Look how they just can't seem to crack it and move down here. Well, all of a sudden, lo and behold, the dynamic or the price pressure bands turn upward, a bullish sign. You got a new buy channel. The Cobra, which was down below this orange filter line, crosses back up over it with a new buy channel. Prices are back up over the blue line, which is a bullish sign, and they're ramping back up over the gold line. Typical action since November 8th when the Trump train started rolling out of town. So you just go as a normal boomerang measure, you go back in and buy them at the market and you look for 3 points, or you assume this market is really bullish. These prices could and probably will in the final hour run back up at least to the magenta line here on the first upper level of the institutional exhaustion level moving up. So you're long at 41.75, right? That's where the long would be on this pullback here in this blue dot, 41.75, and you assume they could go as much as 50.25. That's an 8-point move. Well, you can see where they went into the close. They ran right up to the magenta line, stalled, and then flopped back lower into the close. You see that? So I'm sure you can see how valuable the roadmap is combined with the hyper scalp and the precision trade guide. Precision trade guide is a below orange bearish. Above the orange line turns bullish. Going above the blue line becomes sort of an upward exhaustion neutral. But there is another, for NASDAQ, there's another level up here at the 4-period line, upper and lower. And that's an extreme exhaustion level. But a lot of times they go to the blue line, and you can see here they cross right back under, giving you confidence in your trade. You got the price pressure bands crossing over. That's a lot of confidence in those boomerang trades. Same here. Price pressure band crosses up, pull back the signal line, even though they pulled back a little against you. You got those price pressure bands confirming to stay long, and the other tools of the roadmap. Again, this is an advanced study. Here, notice this is a classic case here where there were the bands ran up over the exhaustion level. So you decide, I'm going to take this sell on the boomerang. I'm going to just scalp for 3 points because I'm not sure where it's going, and we're kind of on a little bit of a bullish side here. Well, the bands cross over here under the blue, and notice how when they come down here, you never get that magenta line quite crossing under the orange line, so they stay bullish. You see that? They never quite cross under, and then you get a crossover here, so still bullish, and the market goes up. Goes up here again with the bands tapping over the exhaustion level, and again here, and here as they expand when these pull back here, but now you're again once again trying to work into a sell mode. But the market lately, this is the last few days, they're just not letting it happen, and that's a big whatever. That's okay. A lot of excitement for that. So that's how the whole thing works. That's how the price pressure bands, the filters, these are all new Boomerang indicators, and the precision trade guide, which is still very it's an older indicator I made, but it's still very valuable for measuring any stock, ETF, or futures contract. So I hope you enjoyed the presentation. If you have any questions at all, feel free to email me at mohan@daytradersaction, and I'll be glad to explain that more to you.